Hey guys, we're going to take and do another assignment here in OnShape. I actually think this one's going to be pretty fun. We're going to make a new part studio. We're going to right click and rename it. We're going to call this one nameplate. So this one here is going to be a little more complex, but hopefully you guys have created all the other various stuff here. And this shouldn't be too bad. So I'm going to take and select the top plane, and we're going to do a new sketch, and I'm going to view normal to the sketch plane. That's crooked. Let's straighten it out. There we go. Now, this is just the way that I do it. Exactly how you guys want to take and make it, completely up to you. However, it does need to be of actual reasonable size. You can't take and make a big, huge one because that's just too costly. But I'll show you guys how I take and do this. So what I want to do is do my center point rectangle, start it here at my center, pull this out, and I like making these about 13 inches wide. Now, what I'm going to do is show you guys a cool thing here. You can actually take and start laying in equations into your dimensions. So what we can actually say is 2 plus 5 divided by 8. This is 2 5/8. So, but I can lay it in here as 2 plus 5/8. There we go. And it does the math for me. 2.625. So you can actually use your dimensioning to do math for you. Now, once we've actually laid this in, I'm going to keep my center point rectangle because I'm going to come over here in the corner and I'm just going to click and I'm going to make another box. And I'm going to do 1 inch and I'm going to make this 1/8 of an inch thick. Now from here, I'm going to click on my dimensioning, and I want to dimension from the top here 1/2 of an inch, and I want to dimension here from the sides be 1 inch. Now let me take and explain our dimensions a little bit. If you guys notice, we made this here 2 5/8 of an inch thick. And basically our bottom section in here from this line to this line is 2 inches. Our little box is 1/8 of an inch, and our top here is 1/2 an inch. And that's how we actually are laying out our dimensions. So I called out 2 5/8. So if we add up 1/2 plus 1/8 plus 2 inches, it's 2 5/8. So a little bit of pre-planning in there. Now that we have our little box, we're going to take and use what we've used before. We're going to do a linear pattern. What we want to do is start selecting our geometry here for our box. And you can see it starts to create other boxes to the side. And we want to take a look at this. Now, I made this whole big box 13 inches wide. And what we actually want to do is to take and then make this 6. And you guys will see here in just a second. So if I do 6 and I put 1 inch of space between them, so basically from the first of one to the first of another, I take and I make it to 2 inches. By doing that, it lays these out evenly across this whole entire plate. So I have 1 inch gap and then a 1 inch little box, a 1 inch gap, 1 inch box, 1 inch gap, 1 inch box. You get the idea, it goes to the end. That's why I made this thing 13 inches wide so that it would fit 6 of these in here. So again, a bit of pre-planning. Now that's all I needed, so I'm going to take and click on that. So now I have a nameplate here. But now I need to take and actually put somebody's name on it. So what I'm going to do is come up here to my text button. Click my text button. I'm going to come down to my point right here. Click. Drag out. Now I want this to go all the way to the other side. So what I'm going to do is actually zoom out just a bit. There we go. I'm going to touch this other point. I'm not clicking. I'm just touching this other point. By touching it, then I can go straight up, even if I move around a little bit, and I can take and make sure that I'm lined up with that corner, and I can click. What that does is it basically says, I want to go from this point to this point. There you go. Now it knows what I want. Okay, now we can get into our text tool. I like using the, what is this, Roboto Slab, I guess. And I'm just going to take and type in my name, Mr. Reese. And I think that's good, so I'm going to take and hit the button. Hit my green check mark. There we go. Nameplate. Now, with this here, I need to take and extrude this. So if I leave the sketch open and I hit my extrude button, there you go. It pretty much knows what I'm after. I'm going to just adjust this to 1/8 of an inch, because that's probably what I'm going to cut it out of. And then I just hit my green check mark. There we go. Nameplate. Now, let's take and talk about this here just a little bit. First off, notice I cut these holes in a line right here. Now, this is not a required piece of geometry. What this is just allows me to bend it across these holes right here to keep this straight. Now, if you don't want to put that in, you certainly don't have to, but it's going to be a lot harder to bend this. Now, the idea here is that when this actually gets bent, that'll be bent sideways there. It'll actually, this nameplate will stand on its own. Okay, now let's take and talk about this a little bit more here. What I want to do is to actually take and go back into our sketch. Because what if your name is different than mine? I know, crazy. But what we could actually do here is I want to take and right click on this and I want to edit the text. Okay. And what I'm going to take and do here is, let's say that I am taking and making this nameplate for my wife. Now her first name is Mariah. So if I click on this, it pulls up Mariah, but do we see a problem here? Notice the top of this I. So if we actually end this, the top of that I isn't actually connected to anything. So if I try to actually cut this out, it's just going to fall off. So what I need to do is connect that. So let me show you guys how to do that. Well, we're back into the sketch here. What we're going to do is go over to our rectangles. And I found a corner rectangle is pretty useful for this. We click on our corner rectangle. We're just going to start in the top of the eye, and we're going to pull a rectangle down into the other part of the eye. And that's it. There we go. Right click, escape, hit our green button, bam, eyes connected. Now, if you have some other various geometry that you want to take and actually add in here, you're certainly welcome to, if you want to connect other letters and such. So let's take and jump back in here, and I want to take and highlight this little thing, and I'm just going to delete it because I want to come back in here, right click, edit the text, and let's take and try a different name. Now, let's take and think of one here off the top of my head. Let's do Greg. I don't really know why, but we're doing Greg. So with Greg here, notice our G over here is cutting pretty hard into the base. That's not really going to work for us here. So what we actually need to do is we're going to have to take and fix this. So we're going to take and get rid of our text. Because what I want to do is show you guys how to do a name that's a little different. What we're going to do is take and go back to our text tool. We're going to click out here into open space. Doesn't even matter where. We're going to type in Greg. There we go, green check mark. Now Greg is floating up above here. Oh, that's a different G there. Apparently I didn't change the, change that to that one. I like that one better. There we go. Now, G drops down in here. Well, what we actually want to do is we can't call out a dimension from the bottom of this G. We have to call it out from this construction line here. This construction line basically is lines that lay out the dimensions of these letters. So what we want to do is go to our dimension tool, click here, click there, and pull in between. When we do this, we take a drop in. Oh, I did ½ inch. That was way too much. Let's try 3/4. No? Man, that drops in there a lot. There we go. 1 inch works. We just want to barely touch that edge. Just a little bit. Just enough to get them over the top. Now, what we want to do next is still in our dimensioning tool. We want to take and pull this, pull that, pull it up, and call out 13 inches. There we go. Now it sizes it to the plate. But we're not done yet. We need to take and go here to the edge. We need to go to the edge. And we need to take and set this to 0. And that basically aligns our G here with the edge of the plate. I know this is starting to get way more complex. It looks like our G dropped in a little bit. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. Let's go 1 1/8. No, 1 1/4. There we go. That looks better. Okay, now that we have this, we want to take and add some other geometry here because we need to take and actually connect our other letters. So again, we're going to take and use our corner rectangle. We're going to come down to the point right here. Select the corner rectangle. There we go. Pull this up, and I want to pull up to this line. And I'm just going to put this somewhere, I don't know, right there. There we go. Now that takes and actually connects it. But once it's all connected, you got all your letters where you want them to be. Now we can take and actually close out our sketch. And there we go. Now, this is not as pretty. So I think we can take and do better. I think what we should do is come in here with a chamfer. So by clicking on our chamfer tool, what we can actually do is come in on this edge and cut that off. Now I can actually take and call out which distances I want this to be. So let's say, no, not a half. 1? Yeah, 1 might work. Kind of cuts that corner off there. You know what? Let's do 1 1/4. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. Then we'll do this other side here as well. That kind of put that in a weird way, didn't it? Let's take and do one, and then we'll do the other. We'll do another chamfer on the other side. What did we say? 1 1/4. There we go. 1 by 1 1/4. There we go. That looks good. Now you guys can try out some different stuff in there. We could do a chamfer. You could do a fillet if you wanted. You get the idea. Whatever you think looks nice. You can pull this in a little tighter or leave it a little long. Wherever you guys want to take and do that. So let's take and do this. I'm going to use my rollback bar to jump back. Let's take this chamfer off. And let's see how we would like a fillet. Let's take and do a fillet on there. We'll do a rounded corner. Let's do like 1 inch. There's 1 inch, look. Maybe Inch and a quarter. Yeah, there we go. Inch and a quarter. Now I would probably pick the fillet or the chamfer, but I just want to show you guys both. You could take and roll it out or do a harder edge, whatever you prefer. But that's how you can take and do names that drop down a little bit. Or if you have the eye up there, you can do that as well, add some other geometry to it. So again, there's our nameplate. This is just how I take and actually do it. If you guys want to take and do it a different way, that's perfectly fine. As long as it's of reasonable size, you know, and school appropriate, then I don't see any reason why you guys couldn't cut it out. Ask your teacher. They have the final say. All right, guys, that is the assignment. We'll see you.